Hi, Tammy. How are you? Good, good, good.
It's good.
So just be careful when you're not speaking, just be mindful.
Well, it won't turn off.
Yeah, that, just be mindful when you're not speaking.
Oh.
They could be like, mess with it for a while.
Okay, so I can't say anything under my breath.
You can say whatever you want.
I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order, and we're going to have the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we'll have our roll call. Do we do roll call? Nope. Okay. We'll do welcome and introductions.
Randy Gilman, Assistant Superintendent, Elementary.
Tammy Cardona, Assistant Superintendent Secondary.
Jim Shalhoub, Director.
Carol Yount, Director.
Bob Grunwald, Director.
Judy Turney, Board Secretary.
John Stewart, Chief Financial Officer.
April Mackel, Board Member.
Michelle Chamberlain, Director.
Crystal Hargis, Vice President.
Nisha Patel, Superintendent.
Judy Smith, President for the Board. And we have approval of the agenda for April 13th. I need a motion for that.
Motion to approve the agenda.
I need a second.
Second, Chamberlain.
And all in favor?
Yes.
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 Okay, any opposed? Okay, motion carries. We go on to 4.4, approval, let's see, approval of the minutes from the March 15th and the March 16th meeting. I need a motion to approve those.
I make a motion to approve the minutes from March 15th and 16th.
Do we have a second?
Second, Jim Shalhoub.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And we have superintendent comments.
Yes, I would like to start off by welcoming April Mackel and congratulating you officially to the school board. Thank you for volunteering the next 3 years of your life to our district. So really appreciate that. And same to you, Mr. Shalhoub. Congratulations for another 3-year term. Really, I hope that everybody had a really good, relaxing spring break, because I can't believe we just came back from spring break. And someone told me that I think there's only about 30 school days left, which is surprised the heck out of me. I didn't realize that's all we have left. So our goal now is to make sure we finish the school year strong. We will continue to monitor, obviously, the data with COVID-related items. And Friday is our second day of the vaccination clinic. So I really want to thank again Pharmax Pharmacy for partnering with us. I think to be able to say we've vaccinated, well, after Friday, we'll fully vaccinate 650 educators from Jefferson County is a pretty big deal. And then if you count Dunklin and Northwest, that's another 1,000 educators. So very proud of the vaccination clinics that we've put together. And so look forward to a strong, strong finish.
We're going to use patrons' comments for board comments. So we'll go over and start with Randy.
Okay, so not an agenda item, so I wasn't really prepared for a board comment this evening, but just teachers are coming off of spring break, well-deserved break for teachers. This has been a year like any other for our staff, our teachers, our admins, so they're just prepping right now and getting ready for our MAP test, which will be starting in the next couple weeks. So that's kind of what's going on in our world at elementary.
So I do have a couple things. We are also starting testing at the secondary. One of the things that we've been focused on is really getting the Canvas platform and all of the curriculum written. So I want to just give a shout out to Robin Green and the work she's been doing, and just making sure that we're building a good product for our students in the future and for our teachers. And we've had a lot of input from the teachers, which has been really important. And it's a long process. It's going to take us a while to get there, but I really think that this is going to be great for our district and for our students. And then I want to welcome April and Jim back to the board. We know that this can be stressful, and this is, like Dr. Patel said, just giving the next 3 years of your life, and we do appreciate you guys giving back to the district. So thank you.
I want to thank the community for putting their trust in me for another 3 years. My commitment to what I plan to do will not change, and that commitment is to our students and supporting they're getting the very best possible education that they can possibly get here and achieve their potential for learning. Because we know that's what they have to take with them out into life, and if they want to have success with life, they're going to have success with learning. So my total focus, as it has been since I frankly started in this business 50 years ago, is making sure that we do everything for them so that they fulfill their potential for learning. I do want to do one thing, too. I want to express my gratitude to Vicki Hansen. She served 3 years on the board, was very dedicated, a very hard worker, and then she served as president during the most difficult year in the history of the school district as board president. And she she exceeded all expectations on what I thought she needed to do to try to accommodate the community. And I just want to thank her for all her hard efforts, because she really gave her all to make that happen. And I'm glad to be back.
I'd have to agree. Vicki did a great job as board president. I think her heart was into it. Welcome back, Jim, and your continued vision for the school district is very admirable. And we just need to continue on your train of thought, and be sure that our kids are getting the education that they need. And I want to welcome April.
Thank you.
For the next 3 years. It's going to be a very exciting 3 years for you, and I welcome you as a fellow board member.
Thank you.
I too would like to welcome April, and I'm sure she's hard sitting already. She's been observing that long closed session, and so she's amazing what it's going to be like, but that too shall pass, so welcome to the board.
Thank you. Is it my turn?
So I've got a piece of good news I want to share with the board, and then an update as well. And the good news is, so as you all know, next week, a week from today, we'll be pricing our bonds. A little over a week ago, went through the process with S&P, Standard & Poor's, for the rating of our bonds. And that's a kind of a grueling process of questions and answers and all that kind of stuff. So did that, and had a follow-up due diligence call with bond attorneys, and those are always fun as well. Received the final rating letter from S&P on Friday of last week, and our underlying bond rating just on the district's financial strength is affirmed at an A+, so that remains unchanged. So that's good news. Our official rating, because we're going to be using the direct deposit program through DESE and MOHIFA, where they divert a portion of our state aid payments on a monthly basis to a paying agent, where it's escrowed and then makes payments towards our bonds twice a year. Because that's backed by the state, we get to ride on the state's AA+ rating of that program. So that brings us up a little higher for the rating of our bonds. So that's the good news. So we'll have more information for the board next Tuesday at the meeting there. The update that I wanted to give is a brief update on Antonia Elementary and Merrimack Heights Elementary projects. And so we're continuing to meet with BRS, Mr. Barbagallo, and myself, and other district staff. As far as Antonia specifically goes, the preparations are continuing for the summer renovation work. which includes the HVAC and the lighting upgrades in portions of the existing buildings. The permits have been secured, and the contractor, which is IFS, or Integrated Facility Services, is ordering equipment and materials. The construction document phase of the design of the new addition is nearing completion, and applications for permit will be submitted shortly. The planning and zoning review has already begun, and we're planning on having that project bid in May. As far as Merrimack Heights Elementary goes, the construction documents phase of the design is also nearing completion, and applications for permit will be submitted shortly. Planning and zoning review has begun, and we're also going to bid that project in May. So that's all I have for you.
Could I ask you a question about the ESSER funds? Could you give us some information about that and possibly the money that has been released, if we've gotten any money released from the governor from what he withheld from us last year?
Okay, so I'll start with the release of the funds from the governor. So if everybody remembers, we were, the governor withheld funds. He restricted the budget, 120 some odd million, $130 million for K-12. That equated to about $3 million for Hvac that we did not receive all at once in July of 2020. At the end of February, beginning of March, the governor released all of those funds. However, we're not receiving those payments all at once. We are supposed to receive those in March and April, so split over 2 months instead of the rest of the year. So in another week or so, whenever we receive our April payment, we should be caught up to where we would have been had there not been a withholding from the state at the beginning of the year. So that's the good news. As far as the ESSER 2 funds, I think that's what you were talking about, Ms. Hargis.
Yes.
So that was the round of funds that were passed in December, and Hvac's allocation is about $4 million, and there's been some discussion, and in fact, the board's already approved some items relating to Canvas so that we can do some of that distance learning and help along with that. But we've basically allocated about not quite $60,000 of that $4 million. The allowed usages for those $4 million is pretty broad. If you recall, the original CARES funds that we received not quite a year ago was really broad, and we applied those all to salaries because we were shut down, nobody was here, and we continued to pay salaries. So those funds all went to salaries. Some of the later funds were more restrictive and had to be for items that were not already in the budget and specifically related to COVID. This group is, again, a little bit broader. And so there's lots of things, of course, that we could allocate it to, and we've talked about some different things at the cabinet level, and I know we've shared some things individually with the board. Of course, we've got more needs in this district than the $4 million we have allocated. So we've got to think about how we're going to do this. And just some of the ways that we could, some of the other ideas. So we've got the Canvas stuff going on, including some training. We have lots of curriculum instruction resources that are in need, and that we could fill that need for the next few years and not have to worry about that as a budget item in the operating budget going forward. We've got, and as the pandemic has kind of showed us all, we've got a great need in HVAC in various areas of the district. And it could be applied towards salaries as well. And so my initial thoughts were, okay, we can apply some to the HVAC, and that helps us get down the road another year or so on the capital projects, because obviously we've got a lot of needs. The red tape that comes along with the federal funds is pretty tremendous, and if you get into equipment purchases and then equipment like HVAC that becomes part of a facility and then it's technically real estate, that red tape gets thicker and thicker. And so one thing that could occur is if we were to, say, allocate whatever remainder of the ESSER funds was not going to be allocated to, say, curriculum instruction, Canvas, and the like. So let's just, for round numbers, say we're allocating $500,000 to curriculum supplies and Canvas and the like. If we allocate the other $3.5 million, say, to salaries, And then we take the budget that's already there for those salaries, because that's already allocated. And I'm talking about salaries for this year. And we, if we hold that for now, at June 30, that's $4 million, $3.5 million that would increase our fund balance. And we could take part of that, $3.5 million, or all of it, of course, it's a board decision, and we could reallocate that budget-wise into capital projects to, as if you'll remember the discussion we had a couple months ago about having funds in capital projects to, at the beginning of the year, to fund the projects for the next year. So then that $3.5 million would be there for the summer of '22 projects and would help us on down the road there. So that's a possibility. So I think that's what, is that what you were looking for, Ms. Hargis?
Yes, that was very helpful, John. Is there any way, too, that we could possibly later on add a workshop that would include some of this information that John has, so that we're not getting bits and pieces of it? We can actually sit down as a group and we can have a conversation about it. I think that's important, Judy, so it's something to think about.
Okay.
Now, this discussion didn't include any of the discussion about the federal funds coming, the new federal funds coming, or is that for?
Well, this ESSER 2 funds is federal funds, but this is not the latest round that President Biden signed, a month ago, a month and a half ago.
Right.
And
Do
we
we
still
have
don't
it?
know what that allocation is. The best estimate that I've heard from DESE and from some other sources is to take the amount that you're going to be allocated from ESSER 2, which is just about $4 million, and multiply that by 2 to 2.5 times. So that's $8 to $10 million.
Okay, so the bottom line, if we know that that's coming, so looking at this whole body of additional funds, rather than looking at them just in isolation relative to how we plan on spending it, don't you think it'd be worthwhile to maybe look at the whole package and see the best way to send that? Especially, I guess my biggest concern is our kids took a real hit educationally this year, many of them. Right. Some of them got through it okay, but many of them took a real hit educationally. And somehow, some way, we need to do something to try to get these kids caught up. Because, you can't get time back. And so we're going to have to figure out a way to use some of these resources to help our kids get caught up. And so we need to be thinking about that, I believe. And
I believe there is, I don't remember if it's in the ESSER 2, it might be in this latest ARP group of funds that will be coming at some point, that there's a certain percentage of it that has to be allocated and spent on addressing learning loss. And so I think that's exactly what you're talking about, Mr. Shalhoub.
I just wanted to say that I'm humbled and honored to sit here, and I don't take it lightly. I have a lot of learning to do, all while putting students first. So thank you, community, for putting me here. And like I said, I'm looking forward to the next 3 years, and thank you for the warm welcome from the board as well.
I just want to welcome April. Congratulations. And then Jim, congratulations on earning your seat. Prior to the spring break, I had the opportunity to have parent-teacher conferences via, I guess, Zoom. Actually, I had to do it on the phone because I was out of town, and I think I talked to almost every one of my kids' teachers, and it was just so convenient. It was 10 minutes, and every single one of them had great things to say about my kids. I mean, no, it was just awesome, and I just really like that format. I don't know if that's something in the future that could be an option, but it was great. And I hope everyone had a great spring break, and we're just looking forward to the future. I do have a senior this year who's excited about prom. He's getting his ticket, and then graduation, and his last day is on the 14th of May. It's going to be here before long. So I just want to thank the teachers, the staff, bus drivers, cooks, everyone for doing everything that they did extra this year to make it happen. And next year's going to be so much better.
I just want to welcome April to the team. I'm looking forward to working with you, and congratulations to Jim. I think things are going to be looking up this next year, and I can't wait to move on.
I want to also welcome April and welcome Jim back. I want to thank the community for giving us another educator. I was in a conference about a week and a half ago with school board presidents across the state, and they were talking about the diversity in their boards, but the diversity was the different kinds of educators. And I was surprised to hear how the boards were made up of so many educators. And Dr. Patel is going to Clayton, and the school board president from Clayton was a presenter. And it was really neat to hear him present in that, in ways they onboard board members. And also, he's an administrator in a neighboring school district. And so I was really, it was really kind of exciting to know that there's a place for educators when they retire, or even when they're out there as parents. And so we're happy to have April, and she'll offer a lot of her wisdom from being a mom and an educator. And so welcome to you both, and we're gonna go on. We have 6.1, Arnold Garden Club. We have Mr. Joe McKee. He's gonna make a presentation for us. Welcome, Mr. McKee.
Thanks for your time. There was a slideshow. Did everybody see that slideshow, or is that something that can be brought up? Ah, wonderful. So, my name is Joe McKee. Today I'm representing the Arnold Garden Club. Last year we had this wonderful project all planned out, and we postponed it for about 365 days. So, move forward on the slides, or who's doing that? Or do I have a button? Yes. So the Garden Club, this is our 5th season. Last year was kind of a little lacking. We did a lot of maintenance. We didn't actually do an install, but we tried to teach the community. We get the students involved, mostly through Hvac students, and we teach them about gardening, teach them about maintenance, get their hands dirty, and it's something that we've got a lot more vision for the community involvement. We just need more manpower. So the idea is we just keep things moving until people put themselves in place. Next slide. So our goals, we continue to grow, which we grow a little bit every year. It's nice to see people come out and take part in the community. It's really great when we do a planting, because we get a whole bunch of people involved and everybody sees things going. The things where we fail is the maintenance, because summer comes around and who wants to get out on a Saturday morning when it's 100 degrees, and so we just work on this stuff. We do evening meetings as well. The next slide. So an overview of Rickman. We've done 3 plantings so far. We've done the main entrance, the 4 squares around the sidewalks there. Then we've done the side in 2 phases that faces Jeffco Boulevard. This year, next slide please. Phase 4 is the side that faces the Fox High School. What we do is we go in, we're going to take out the old shrubs that are overgrown and haven't been maintained. And if you can continue on slides. Gotta remember this, that's a poor picture. Better picture. We replace them with mostly natives. We prefer to do natives because they tolerate our environment and they do well here. This project is being funded by Travel and Tourism. We've been awarded $4,000 this year, which is the most we've ever been awarded. So we're going to be able to buy bigger plants, bigger trees, more shrubs. We will update the plant beds that have had plants that we've lost. We found out that the maintenance guy was going out there and spraying weeds. They weren't always weeds, they were plants. So we've corrected that now. You know, it's been School of Hard Knocks. Your next slides. So the next few slides are the plant variety that we're planting. Again, they're almost all natives. A few of the trees that we're putting in, the white oaks, you'd have to look at all of them. There's a whole bunch of them. And then the next slide will be your perennial flowers. Most all of these are pollinators, and we try to do a selection so that you're having some bloom right as school is getting out, all the way throughout the summer, which unfortunately the Rickman Auditorium doesn't get used as much. But for travel and tourism, people are coming to Rickman Auditorium and they're getting to use the facility. And so I'm here today to ask for your permission to do phase 4. We have student council, the Stucco, the National Honor Society through Fox. We have the Londell Cub Scouts, the PAC 557. I can't remember which school it's with. But we'll also be reaching out to other Cub Scouts in the local area and also the Seckman High School FAR volunteers. And we get a lot of these kids that come out there that don't know how to use a shovel, and we teach them to use a shovel and how to plant a plant and how to not step on things. So any questions?
Nice. Anybody have any questions? Okay, we need a motion to approve permission for the Arnold Garden Club to work as they presented to us.
I make a motion.
Second, Jim Shalhoub.
All in favor?
Yes.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And if
Yes,
anyone
thank
wants to
you.
volunteer and help out, you're welcome.
Thank you. That's awesome.
Maybe we could post the schedule on the website so people would kind of know when to come and help you out. That would be good. Okay, thank you very much. We have item 7.1, readoption of board policy BBFA, and we need a motion to approve that policy regarding board member conflict of interest and financial disclosure.
I make a motion to approve policy BBFA.
We need a second.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to readopt board policy BBFA regarding board member conflict of interest and financial disclosure. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. We have an update to policy DIAA, and this is a discussion item. And are you leading the discussion? Oh, are you going to?
I was just going to.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I was just going to add this policy originally adopted last fall by the board, outlining fund balance percentages to maintain, and the highlighted paragraph would be some language you could consider adding in there to outline the necessary financial status of the district before any voluntary incentive would be offered. So that's for your discussion and consideration.
Is this a first reading?
Is this just considered a first reading, John?
I don't know that it would be.
So this is just
I
for
guess
discussion?
potentially it could be, but this was
is
just
for
simply for your
discussion.
discussion purposes. If you like it, great. We can bring it back for maybe a first reading next meeting and then a second reading, or if you guys have some amendments or whatever, it's your call.
Anybody have any questions or comments?
I have some comments about this. I think the purpose of this addition is because prior to the year 2014, I think the district was making voluntary incentives kind of like a practice. And so whenever somebody retired, they would get a large sum. Is that correct? That's so I just wanted to put in writing or in a policy so that there was really no mindset or anything until we got our fund balance above 20%, that there would be any discussion or negotiation about incentives if we don't have our fund balance above 20%.
I guess the only thing that's confusing to me is the whole point of a separation and incentive program is to improve your budget standing. And there, first of all, incentive, that can be a lot of different things. I mean, that's not very well defined up there. And generally speaking, if you would have, for example, like there's a reduction in force incentive. So let's say we have 1,500 students drop from our enrollment. We have way too many teachers. Okay, well, one of the things that you try to do to lower the cost of your salaries is to incentivize those people that are at the top of the schedule. So I'm just having a hard time understanding. Are there any other districts that have a policy like this? Did you get this from a model someplace, or?
No, this is language that is a John Stewart special.
Oh, okay, so there's MSBA doesn't. It seems like this would tie our hands, especially in a situation where we have to do something quickly. And we went through that one time in our school district, by the way. We lost about 2,000 students, and we had to reduce our staff considerably. And we did, and by doing that, we put ourselves in a better financial position, because it has to do with the structure of the incentive, number one. I just think that this is inappropriate, frankly, and I would not be in favor. I think this ties your hands, because there's always something that could come up that could possibly, where you would have to violate this policy essentially to accomplish that.
And if I may, I mean, just, do you recall what the fund balances were at the time that you guys had to do that because of the loss of students? Because, I mean, if your fund balances are in fine shape, that's the board's call. But anyway, just
here's the problem with that, though. We have kept our fund balance at $15.5 million, our operating fund balance. That's the balance we have at the end of the year, which has just been enough money. And so we've kept it there. And the way we've kept it there is we've spent some years $7 million on capital improvements, some years $5 million, some years $6 million. And so the issue has always been, we have kept it down there by spending more on capital improvements. Maybe we need to put something in there about limiting capital improvement expenditures if we're worried about trying to grow the reserve. I agree, our reserve needs to grow considerably. But I'm not so sure building in these kinds of restrictions into the best interest of a school district, and certainly takes away a lot of our flexibility.
Mr. Shalou, if I can comment on that. The purpose behind this is so that our community knows that there's no way that this board is going to be okay with us giving an incentive to retiring teachers if we can't have a fund balance of 20%. There's no way as a taxpayer, and I'm sure they don't either, want to give the last, 50% of the last year's salary to a teacher that is retiring, as that was the practice prior to 2014.
That incentive doesn't say 50%. Number one, the incentive can come in many forms, but the bigger piece is the reason you do that. For example, it's possible for a school district to get maybe 40% of their people at that top salary level. Well, that's very expensive. You get 40% of your people up there, and you're spending a lot of money on salaries. And if you can have some of those people retire, you hire a new teacher in at half the amount, less than half the amount, and it makes the whole salary schedule far more affordable.
Have we had an attorney look at this to see?
No.
Okay.
No, this was just, I was asked about some potential language to put in there, so before spending funds on legal fees.
I have the same concerns as Jim on this issue, because I don't believe that we should tie our hands to a policy, especially with us not having an idea of what things are going to look like down the road for us. This is also an item that could be a negotiated item through teacher contracts. They can negotiate an incentive, so we're also then tying their hands to be able to negotiate something in contracts. I'd like to know what an attorney's perspective, I'd like to know if other school districts have something similar to this before we make movement on this at all.
I don't think I've ever seen a school district. I know there's been several school districts over the last 4 or 5 years that have done incentives for various reasons. I think Ladue did one, actually, the year that Dr. Whipke went there.
Yeah, I believe Windsor
at the
just
end of
did
that
one.
year. And so there's a reason for doing it, and typically the reason is to bring down your cost in your school district. That's why I'm not sure, I don't understand why it would be a part of this policy. That's just my opinion, folks.
Like I said, I just don't want our incentives to get out of hand as they were prior to the 2014, when retiring teachers were given 50% of their last year's salary. I never want that to happen again.
Well, I think that's our job as a board, is to have those conversations, because we're looking at the budget and trying to make determinations about what is in the best interest of the school district. And as a governing body, we have to take that into in our decision-making process of whether or not we could afford to do something like that. I know that many districts, I know Windsor made they're doing an incentive, and I believe it's insurance this year. So it comes in many forms, but this here could tie our hands and make it very difficult for us to offer something that maybe potentially could help us in our budget down the road.
I'd like to ask a question. John, is there a time or that you can show in black and white how the budget worked in the past with the incentives to educate me? And then Mr. Shalhoub, you said that you could put in capital, you could do the fund balances and put a cap on capital improvements. But that is if you do that as the capital improvements, then you have something that the taxpayers has paid for and they can use and they see all the time. But with the incentives, that's not necessarily the case. So I would just like a little more education from the past.
Ms. Meckel, the last time that occurred, I think it was 2014, 7 years ago, well before I came. I'd have to do a little digging and see how that worked out and what the financial situation was at that point in time. But I mean, I don't have that right at my fingertips, but it's something I could do some research.
Let me just mention one other thing. The very first time this was used in our school district is, as I said before, is when we had a reduction in enrollment and we had to get teachers out. They offered this incentive. Actually, they offered the incentive for anybody all the way down to 6 years of experience because we needed to get people out. If we hadn't had people take advantage of that incentive, what would have happened, we would have had to have RIFed people, and when you RIF people, you start with those people that are not tenured. Well, people that are not tenured make about half as much as those people at the top, so you end up, this is about supporting the instructional program. I feel like that there's some resentment that teachers would get an incentive, but the truth is this is about supporting your instructional program so you have enough teachers and can pay and have a staff with enough teachers that aren't terribly expensive in a situation where especially you need to you have to empty a lot of classrooms. I've been in a situation where I was once there was a possibility we were going to have to RIF 240 teachers at the bottom of the salary schedule. This just doesn't make any sense to me at all. I got to tell you that. I think that's why you don't see many school districts that have a policy like this, if there are any at all. And I don't understand the motivation behind it if you just don't like the idea of somebody getting an incentive to leave. But there's a lot of industries that do that. I mean, it's not unusual. But for me, it's about one thing, keeping plenty of teachers in our classrooms and making sure that we can keep that class size at a reasonable level.
Do we know where we came up with 20%? I don't know.
The 20% is already in the policy that was adopted last year as far as minimum fund balances to try to maintain, if you look 2 paragraphs up, funds equal to in a range of 15 to 20% of its prior year operating expenditures.
So, my understanding about, I was a beneficiary of the last incentive that was given, and my understanding was that when you offer incentives and teachers at the top leave, you end up saving money and having more money to provide more teachers and more instructional materials and things to the classrooms. And so, anyway, so basically what this is saying, if I'm understanding correctly, is that the district could offer no incentive of any kind. Is that true? Unless our fund balance are at 20%? Is that what the premise is?
That's the way that is written, yes.
Okay.
And like I said, that was just to go with the statement 2 paragraphs up, that our focus as a board is to make sure that our fund balance is at 20%, and that's our focus.
That focus is absolutely genuine, and my personal opinion is 20% is not nearly enough. Not nearly enough. I feel like we need to double what it is right now. But the way you try to do that is create more funds available, take pressure off of your budget, your incidental fund, so that you can accumulate more funds up there. I just don't see how this fits into that policy. I agree with the 20%. I think that's a critical issue, and I think we have a chance of getting there here in the next year or two. But I think that the new paragraph about the incentive program, when it doesn't define the incentive program, I mean, there's so many ifs in there. I mean, too many things that are not defined, that to put that in a policy, I think, is irresponsible, frankly.
And I know that there was mention about the Windsor District. I am a teacher in the Windsor District. I've been a teacher for 20 years, so I understand what it is. And this year, yes, you're correct. They're paying 4 years, I think, of health care, and they have not done that, I don't think, ever before. There's never been a 50% salary, never been a 25%, nothing like what this district has done prior to 2024. I think it's just, as a newer board member, I just don't want us to ever think that going back to the pre-2014 procedures and policies and mind frame of that, I just don't see how that would ever be good for our district right now.
Well, what do you think over 4 years paying for somebody's health insurance is going to cost? Just curious.
I'm sure, well, not half my salary. I mean,
it's going to be a sizable amount of money, whatever it is. What do we pay per person for health insurance now?
John, what is our?
For us, that'd be
around 6,000.
Yeah, I call it $6,500. So you're talking about $26,000 over 4 years.
It'd be about $26,000. And so, but my point is, that's one form an incentive can come in. But I'm sure the reason they're doing that is because they want to take pressure off of their salary schedule to try to encourage those people that are at the top of the salary schedule to move out. They replace them with brand new teachers that typically cost less than half as much as the teachers at the top of the salary schedule. So they can have enough teachers in the classroom to support the instructional program.
well, I think our community needs to know this. That's why I'm bringing it up, so the community can let us know, if we want to bring it up next week for another board meeting, and then we can vote on it to see where we stand on this subject, on this policy.
Go ahead, Carol. I think you.
I just want to, two things. I understand where Michelle's coming from, but I think this when you put a policy in effect, to counteract that would almost have to be writing a new policy. And so I'm not for putting this into that policy. And I think as board members, we are all aware of the financial condition of our district, and I don't think any of us would promote an incentive to the point that we would be spending more money than we should for people who are leaving. It kind of stands to reason when you have a teacher that's making $80,000 and you give her maybe 10% of her salary, whatever, and you hire another teacher that's coming in for $40,000, it's pretty simple arithmetic that you're saving a little bit of money there. Does it always work that way with incentives? No, it's up to us to see that it does work that way and that we're not giving incentives just to give incentives, that we're using common sense and how we're spending our money. And we have that on our shoulders about everything. And so my only thought about this is it's limiting any decisions that we might make about incentives for however long that policy is in effect. And I don't think that it's a situation where we should review a policy annually and maybe think that we can or cannot do this and have to change the policy frequently. So I would be against putting that into a policy.
Just one other thing, John, on our operating, you're talking about going back to 14. What were our operating reserves on the average, the operating reserve at the end of the year? What were they on the average prior to 15, 16?
I would have to look that information up. I don't have
So
it.
you're going to pull that up in a little bit, aren't you, when you do your financial report?
Financial report will be next week at the regular board meeting.
But generally speaking, that reserve was 20 million plus, was it not?
Off the top of my head, I'm not sure, Mr. Shalhoub.
It
I'll have
was.
to take a look at it.
So somehow we were able to manage to really maintain a good reserve. So my point is that to assume that that strategy is not keeping your costs down, I think is a mistake. The reason industries do that is to keep their costs down. But that's all I'm going to say about it. I'm sorry, Madam President.
Michelle, if you want to bring it back again next week, we'll do, just let me
And
know.
if I may, I just want to be clear. Do you want me to run this through MSBA's attorneys to take a look at, or not, or yes? Okay.
Okay, we'll move on. We're at 8.1, Ameren Demand Response Program. Mr. Stewart?
Yes, so you have in front of you, sorry, trying to get caught up here. We were approached by a company called NLX, and they run for Ameren here a demand response program. The demand response program just asks for large utility users who decide to participate to once or twice a year, if the electricity demand on the grid is going to be extremely high, they will ask you to back off certain things, whether it's set points on AC or lighting, different things. If you've got backup generators, transfer some load over to those to reduce the demand on the electric grid, and then they pay you for that. And so based on the information that you have before you and the information we were given, that could lead to approximately $63,000 in new revenue annually just for participating. Now this participation it runs from I believe it's like May 1st through the end of September, and generally, as noted in the executive summary, it happens maybe once or twice during that period of time when they'll have a call on that. It's generally for no more than a couple of hours, and generally in the afternoon to evening. So during most of that time, we do not have any students in the buildings, and generally it's in the later afternoon. And even if we did have students in for summer school or whatever, they would not be affected. But we could go ahead and participate with that. There is a bit of a need in order to get up and going for the beginning of the program, the agreement, if the board decides to approve it, I need a signature and to submit it by the 15th, which is Thursday. So if there's any questions, otherwise I would ask you to approve this agreement.
Okay, we need a motion to approve the agreement with Anexel to participate in the Ameren Demand Response Program as presented.
So move.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. We go to 8.2, purchase of cafeteria tables at Fox High School. Mrs. Cardona.
Thank you. I'm asking the board to approve the bid attached for Office Source for the purchase of 15 cafeteria tables for Fox High School in the amount of $17,455. This was a bid process. They did receive 6 bids. One of the things that the students at the high school have asked is, if you've been in the cafeteria lately, it's probably the same cafeteria that's been there for a long time, and it's just a way for them to spruce that up. And they will be using their furniture and building funds for this that will be coming from next year.
All right, we need a motion to approve the bid from Office Source for the purchase of 15 cafeteria tables at Fox High School for a total of $17,455 as presented.
Just curious, what kind of tables are they going to be?
So I believe that they're the ones that have the individual seats. They're round and they have the individual seats that come off of them. And honestly, it's an aesthetic type thing, right? When you go into a
Well,
cafeteria, they've got those long tables and high school students, and it's nicer for bigger bodied people.
Yeah.
It's a long time coming,
Yeah.
in my mind.
I make a motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. And we have 8.3, approved bids for summer work at Seckman High School and Fox Elementary School. Mr. Stewart.
So you have before you the bid tabulation form and the interview questions and responses for the summer work that's going to occur this year at Fox Elementary School and Seckman High School, HVAC and roofing. We received 2 bids on March 30th, one from ICS and one from Hankins. You will see that Hankins is the low bidder with $2,893,000. If you'll recall, the board had previously, the board decided, approved the direct purchase of the equipment for these projects. So the equipment's already on order, and that's an additional $641,726. So that would bring the project total up to $3,534,726, which, as noted, is about $114,000 over the initial projection for these 2 projects together. And I did point out that the original projection for these 2 projects is a 2-year-old number, and of course we've had a pandemic in the last year, and you have inflation anyway, so that difference could be made up. There is included in these bids a contingency allowance of $175,000. If that's not used, that will revert back to the district, so that could reduce that delta of $114,000, and the rest could be made up from other capital project expenditure budgets. So I would ask the board to award the bid to ICS Construction Services for a total of $2,893,000.
Okay, we need a motion to award that contract to ICS Construction for $2,893,000.
I have a question real quick, if you don't mind. I'd like to see at least 3 bids usually. Can you tell me why there's only 2?
Right, so I believe we had 4 or 5 bidders or interested construction firms. Is that right, Frank? So we had, this is Frank with Ittner, and we also have Todd with Ittner. We had 5 show up for the pre-bid meeting, and only 2 submitted bids. And, you know, why the others didn't bid, I don't know that anybody commented on why they didn't bid. But I know, you know, one of the things that we had talked about in kind of getting a late start on this anyway was, you know, that we were going to be able to find, you know, qualified bidders
Right.
at the right price point. So, you know, I'm glad we got at least 2. You're right, I prefer to have at least 3. But we have
And
2.
then are the bids closed and opened all together?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they're sealed bids that are submitted for a deadline. That deadline, I believe, was the 30th that afternoon, I think at like 1 o'clock, something like that. And so then we sit in the conference room there at central office, and we open the bids, and anybody in the public is welcome to come, or the bidders are welcome to come, and we open those, and there's a couple people from the finance department there to verify, and we record the bids. And then between Ittner or if it's a in-house bid, you know, then we follow up on due diligence and talk to references and follow up with clarification questions and the like, and come up with a recommendation for the board.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Did somebody make a motion? We need a second? All in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Anybody opposed? Okay, motion carries. We have 8.4, professional development contract from EGL. We have Dr. Todd White here tonight. He's going to present that professional development agreement.
Good evening. Thank you very much for selecting EGL as a part of your leadership transition services. I'm here this evening to present to you an additional service should you so consider. Sorry, the mask is interesting. And,
You can take it off if you'd like
Very
to while
comfortable
you're
taking
talking.
it off to talk.
Thank
Go ahead.
Makes it a little easier to
Thank you.
present.
All right, thank you. If that doesn't help, then I don't know, maybe I'll put it back on. You see in your board packet that we have a consulting program for you to consider. I'd like to walk you through the chronological version of that as it's laid out. It's actually the other document. And the first thing that we would do is certainly work with Dr. Patel and Dr. Frigo in terms of making sure there's a smooth transition until June 30. That's in some ways already underway, but we certainly codify that and make sure, for example, budget, some of those sorts of things that transition from one superintendent to the other, that those sorts of things have a very smooth transition. The second thing is actually what is listed last, and it's one of the most important things in terms of this transition of leadership, as well as you've noted tonight, you have a new board in terms of new membership. And so we would work with you, the board president, the board, and Dr. Frigo to customize a retreat for you that would be held over this summer. Again, this is an important aspect of this is the trust and the working relationship that you have as a board between and among one another, and then with your superintendent and your CEO. And so we would spend a day or two, depending upon how you would like to split that up. It's about 6 hours worth of work that we would come in and spend with systems, protocol, understanding opportunities, how we communicate with one another, just a whole variety of opportunities that we have in order to assist you in this development. From that, then, we would work with both entities, both Dr. Frigo as well as yourself, to develop an entry plan. It's based off of that conversation that we've had over those 6 hours about your expectations for your new superintendent, knowing this community, what they expect from your superintendent, and then we can develop a plan that can be customized and specifically speak to those items that were both included in the feedback that you received on the characteristics of the superintendent, and then the items that you as a board would establish for Dr. Frigo in this first 6 months of work. I'll be back periodically to spend time not only with you at your discretion, but also with Dr. Frigo, and just assisting in any way I can. And then we'll always be available for consultation, both from Dr. Frigo as well as the board, in terms of ensuring a smooth transition of leadership until December 31. So with that as a kind of a commentary on the work that you see, you also have the service agreement for the cost associated with such a service, and I would stand for questions.
I think on the contract, it's 4% of the current superintendent's salary, which is $7,300.
Correct.
And and I think MSIP 6 has some new guidelines towards professional development with school boards. Anybody want to comment on that? You want to say anything about it?
I actually, when I attended the virtual MSBA training, they had went over MSEP 6 guidelines, and board development is going to be part of the MSEP 6. So this might be something that we can apply to that.
And our strategic plan is coming up
So,
Right, so both of those could certainly be a part of that customization that we talked about. The reason why it's customized is because, as I understand it, your CSIP is concluding, and you'll need to begin another one, so that we can certainly customize to that, as well as with the new requirements out of MSIP 6, those 6 hours that you would be working would also apply to those hours. It won't complete that for you,
Right.
obviously, but it would certainly be a good start.
And my understanding is we have a professional development budget to cover this. And so, anybody have any other questions?
Just a comment. You know, we've just gone through a year that's put incredible stress on our instructional program. As we go through this transition to a new superintendent and a new program, we need to hit the ground running, and we need all the support we can get to make that happen if we're going to be able to really deliver the kind of instructional program that our kids deserve.
yes, I agree.
Any questions? Comments? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do we need a
Okay,
motion?
So we need a motion to approve the board professional development contract with EGL presented at this time.
I make a motion.
Second, Shalou.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Anybody opposed? Okay, motion carries. We have 8.5, contract with Instructure. Mr. Stewart.
So Instructure is the company that owns Canvas. This contract will provide 24-hour-a-day technical support for teachers using Canvas to design and deliver courses for virtual learning, whether they're teaching, grading, planning, or creating content. So we would ask for your approval of the contract with Instructure for $11,000 as presented, and it will be paid from ESSER 2 funds.
Anybody have any questions? Okay, we need a motion to approve the contract with Instructure for 3 years of Tier 1, 24 times 7, service support for facilities for the total of $11,000 paid from ESSER funds.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Anybody opposed? Okay, that motion carries. And we have 9.1, donation to Fox High School. Dr. Patel.
I need a motion to approve a donation for a PlayStation to Fox High School Athletic Department.
Who got their hands on a PlayStation?
An anonymous donor
High commodity.
that's going to be raffled off.
Yeah.
I was going to say,
Good questions. Do we have a motion?
I'll motion.
Chamberlain.
Shame.
I'll second.
All in favor?
yes.
Yes.
Anyone opposed? All right, motion carries. We are to 10.1. Is that right? I didn't skip anything, did I?
You're right.
Okay. 10.1, consent agenda. Mr. Stewart, are you presenting that?
Dr.
Oh, I'm
Cardona.
sorry.
No,
I
you're
don't
fine.
have that. Okay, Dr. Cardona.
I've got a lot of scratch outs. This person's going to do it. And so I drew those short straws. So it's
Okay.
gonna be- I'm asking the board to please approve the consent agenda items from 10.2 to 10.8, which includes contracts, hires, stipends, separations, and modifications.
Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda, please?
So move.
All in favor?
Yes.
Anybody opposed? Okay, that motion carries. And we are to, I think, adjournment. If I can get to the last page, that was a lot of pages.
Yeah.
Okay, we need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I second it.
All in favor?